Welcome back, y'all, to Whiplash TV. Today I'm doing a project on the CTSV. I searched YouTube, I couldn't even find a video on this, so figured I'd go ahead and make one. So today we're going to replace the power cable that goes from the fuse block up here on the corner down to the starter, and then factory it runs up and over the transmission and then comes back to the alternator. So whenever you have an issue where you're not getting possibly full charge or even any charge from your alternator, this cable can be an issue, and sometimes it's not the alternator because this wire runs right near the headers, so it sees a lot of heat, and after a lot of abuse of heat, the cable sometimes will just not be performing like it should. It seems like here lately on mine that I don't think I'm getting the full charge from my alternator to the battery while the car's running. It's still in the 13 volts, but I never see anything past that. Usually I would see up past 14 volts. I believe that the cable on the car is the original one that came with it. This car has had long tube headers on it and has seen a lot of heat for many years. So I believe that I stand to gain some charging output from the alternator by changing out this cable. As many of you may know, when you have a heavy-duty intercooler water pump like I do in the trunk, that water pump draws a whole lot of voltage as well. So it is crucial for you to be getting your full charge off of that alternator. So first we're going to go take a look at the new cable, and then we'll start looking at what we got to do on the car to start taking it off. Here's the new cable. This is what it looks like when it comes in the box. I'm going to put a link in the video description to where you can purchase this cable. Here's the GM part number right here. This is what the cable looks like. This end of the cable is going to attach to the fuse block. Coming off of it, you have a wire going for your alternator and a wire going to your starter. It comes wrapped with heat wrap. This right here is the connection for the starter. The wires are taped together to this point, right where the starter wire comes out at. This right here is going to be the first spot where it goes over the transmission bell housing, and there's actually a stud on that top passenger side that holds the transmission to the engine block, and on that stud this slips on there. It's got some other clips on it to help hold it in place. It has built in a 200 amp fuse link. And then you have your connection for your alternator right at this end. So the first thing that I did was to disconnect the negative and the positive off of the battery in the trunk. I'm gonna pull it off of the fuse box, starter, and alternator. I'll do my best to get y'all some good shots up underneath the car. The connection at the fuse box is a 13 millimeter. So now we're down beneath the car on the passenger side. This right here is the wire coming down from the fuse block. Then it goes through one of those holders. That holder is stuck right into the bottom side of the motor mount. And then here's the motor mount coming from it off the block to this one to the subframe. And then you follow the cable on along, and right up here, that's where it's connected to the starter at. There's the nut right there. And there's going to be a split washer on there as well, so don't lose it. Here's this end of the cable. So it appears that on this factory cable, you've got a piece right here that goes down to the starter, and this cable right here is all one piece. I'll try to show you that later better on the workbench. And then this cable goes on to the alternator. So this is not one solid cable right here. The new cable will be one solid cable that goes from the fuse block to here and from the fuse block to the alternator. Alright, I finally got it off of there. This cable was pretty tight that was going up to the starter, so it was kind of hard to get off of there, and it's got two tabs on it, so I actually had to disconnect that electrical plug that goes in there right off of the actual engine harness because it was in the way of this thing coming out. So I've got this off, I've got it disconnected up there on the bottom of the motor mount. So I'm going to get this piece of wire out, and then we got to start getting this piece out. Alright, so here's that wire, and right down here there's a tab holding on to it, so I'm going to pop that loose. Alright, so now it's popped loose, so I'm going to pull this cable right up and out. So this section of cable is what I just took out. This right here went right up onto the fuse block. Then this end went on to the starter. And then the other one went onto the starter on this back side, and then is heading this way to go up and over the trans tunnel to go to the alternator. It looks like this cable might have seen some heat before. It's got a bunch of black and stuff running down it. Here's an area where you can see some heat maybe got to it somewhere. Now remember, on this new line, you actually have your connection to the fuse block, and you have two wires coming off of it. Your black wire goes to the starter, and your red wire stays consistent all the way to the alternator. So now we just have the one connection to the starter right here. Then that other wire stays constant, going all the way to the alternator. Alright, so now I'm going to start running this cable right down through here where it's going to go. Alright, I've got it fed down through there. This part of the cable isn't really going to move or change places. Just make sure my connection is clean at my fuse block. Then I'm going to put this one on. It's going to sit just like that. Then my next connection. And then this right here is my connection for my auxiliary fuel pump. Alright, so this is all tight. I'm all done up here. I'm going to go back down and go ahead and connect the new cable to the starter, and then figure out how I want to go from there. So now I've got the new wire coming in. I've got it right here. I have not connected any of the black push pins to hold it just yet. I'm going to go ahead and connect this end to the starter, and then I'll work my path to the alternator next. Alright y'all, I got the wire slid up onto the starter. It does make it easier and helps out to get by pulling that electrical connector off. So pull it off at the beginning to get it out, so that way you can get the wire onto the starter and by. It'll also give you more room to get your washer and your nut worked up on there. Alright, now the starter cable is on and tight. Put this connection back on. Alright, now the starter connection is back on. and the wiring harness portion too. Time to start working our way to the alternator. So here's what I have now. Here's the new wire coming down, and you can see just how long it is. It's really long. All right, next up is going to be pulling the wire off the alternator. So I've got to undo it off of this Christmas tree right here, and then also up there on the block. There it is right there. Now our cable's loose. Up here, headed to our transmission. Sorry about the noise of the rain. I'm working in the shop. It's like 30-something degrees outside and cold and wet. All right, so back above the car, right down here. So right down there where the screwdriver is pointing to is where I took off the gray plastic slip-on deal that goes over the stud. It's really hard to see down there, but you can just barely see it. And then over on this side, the wire's way down here. You can see me moving it right there at the back of the head to the right of the spark plug wire. So that comes up here, goes above the bell housing, and then right here you can see one of those black clips right there. Those black clips are just holding on to the wiring harness that runs up and over the transmission. So I reached my hand back there and took that one off, and then a little bit further on over there was another one. So both of those are undone. And if you look right here, there's a green plastic piece that had another Christmas tree plugged into it. So now's the time where I gotta decide if I'm gonna run this alternator wire up and over the transmission bell housing, or if I'm gonna run it across the front. So I'm gonna take a look at that, and I'll let y'all know what I decide here in a minute. All right, y'all, here's what I ended up doing. Here's our wire from the starter. I ran it up and forward towards the front of the vehicle. It then comes right here through the cross member. It then comes out the other side right here. And then I was able to use one of those black clips to hold it onto that line right there. And then it comes back up here. And thankfully, I'm not running that crappy stock oil cooler. So I have plenty of room right here for it to coil a couple times. I've got one of those black plastic pieces pressed into the bottom of the motor mount. Then I used another one right down here into one of the standoffs for that oil cooler. And then it goes up into the alternator from there. Now I don't have it run near these headers like this old line that I still have to pull through. It ran right up here next to these headers and saw all this heat. So now I'll be able to get away from all that running it up front. And I also put a piece of sticky back heat shielding right onto my starter to help protect it, and it kind of flares off the front to help protect those wires from seeing that heat. So I like this a lot better. So I finally got the old cable out, so now y'all will be able to finally kind of piece it together. So you've got this one going on to your fuse block post. Then from it came over here to your starter. Then this one connected with it at the starter. So your alternator current has to meet up with this one, which is attached onto the starter together. Then from there, this one then ran all the way to the alternator. And you can see that this shielding has gotten hard and brittle and broken up over the years. You can also clearly tell what has been near the headers. And you can see where it's taken some abuse there. And then also over here, you can see some heat on there. Also right here. I went ahead and cut off the 200 amp fuse cover just to kind of get a look at it. And as you can see, it is still intact, but there's also some signs of heat, stress, and wear on it. Like right up in there. All right, let's see what we got. Volts. That's definitely higher than what I saw before. Like I said, I had not been seeing over 14 for a while. And I have not tried changing the alternator. Changing that cable was my first go-to. That was with all the lights on as well. Thank y'all so much for checking out the video. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and like the video. Also, make sure you're subscribed. Ring that notifications bell. Drop me a comment down below. And I'll catch y'all on the next video.